So once you get past the first step and you've got a huge pool of applicants, well, one of the reasons that a lot of, companies don't like to have large applicant pools is you've got to figure out how to filter through them. How do you filter fast? How do you take a pool of hundreds of applicants and successfully boil that down to a reasonable size pool that you could theoretically interview or talk with, and do that in a way that actually pulls the merit out of that pool? Because that's the thing, when you have a large pool, a lot of times there's folks in there that are totally unqualified, and then there's some diamonds in there. But how do you find those diamonds? So one of the things that we discovered over time is you've got to use some fast filters. Here's some ones that I like. I'll give you two, one from a technical sort of role perspective and then one from a business role perspective. Actually, we'll start on the business side. One of the things that we would ask candidates to do, and we do ask candidates to do, is to write one sentence using these 4 words. And so we would just pick 4 words that were relevant to the job or relative to the company, really. So back in the Hidden Levers days, we would use words that were related to the markets and finance and the economy. So we would do something like, okay, using 4 words, and so it would be like stocks, bonds, and then it would be like oil, volatility, again, terms that are relevant in that company's case. And what we found was, a wide range of responses. But the key is that this simple task, which doesn't take anybody very long if they actually care. First of all, it causes people to self-select. They say, oh, that's a weird thing. Oh, let me try that. People who find that intellectually interesting are going to be more likely to apply, because you put this question in the initial application. It's not going to take anybody more than 5 or 10 minutes, and at the same time, it self-selects for people who care. You may say, oh, people will just use ChatGPT to do it. That's great. So here's the thing. If you have the wherewithal to actually use ChatGPT and to beat its answer into shape, great. That means you're resourceful. So either way, you're getting a signal just from a simple question like that. We found that this approach helped us filter out something like 70% of applicants, just on the basis of being able to write a single sentence. So it's not a high bar, but at the same time, it's a sharp filter, and that would reduce it. So on the dev side, we would do something similar. At times, what we would do is we would ask folks to share a snippet of code. Now, it could be their own code. It could be, code from any library, anywhere on the internet. So, and this is interesting because this actually has to do more with their communication skills to an extent as well. So share a snippet of code and why, simply put, why you like it. Again, if you ChatGPT the response, no problem. At least you showed that degree of interest and of mental flexibility. Like, oh yeah, I could get ChatGPT to help me with this. So for, in the present era, most of, a lot of the time when we use these approaches were before then, but we find they're still working today. So these kinds of fast filters can take a pool of 200 candidates down to like 50 candidates. And now you have people who actually care, at least a little, who are a little bit engaged. And then you can move in to the next level of filtering, which after doing these first layer filters, we found that we can then get into some even sharper filters rather than the traditional approach. So many companies do this. They do like an HR kind of oriented screening first. That's not a very sharp filter. Sometimes 80, 90% of candidates pass. And so it doesn't really whittle the pool down. So rather than that, we jump straight into the details. And that may be more communications oriented tests. That may be more technical tests. Talk about that a little bit more next time. But just from a general approach, filter fast with some quick little questions, and then go technical. I guess that's what I'll call it. Go technical in the first round, where technical, varies by what the role is.